What's up, you guys? We're here with another episode of Who Even Asked.
Yep. I'm Jazz.
I'm Tay.
And we are going to take you guys on a wild ride of the secret life of Mormon wives today. Yeah, we just binge watched that show. Well, I binge watched it. I started it yesterday and finished it in the morning, basically.
I finished it like an hour ago. But I started it not this weekend, but the past weekend. So I just had to cram all those in so we could discuss every one of the episodes because there's a lot to dive into.
Yeah, we'll probably go back and forth, but we're going to kind of touch on each episode because I think there's 8 episodes.
Yes.
And they're all just equally crazy and just wild.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, so we're really just going to go ahead and dive in so we can make it through all of our ideas. Or not ideas, our topics.
Yeah.
Anyways. Okay, so we're going to start off with should we do a little background for the people who don't know?
Yeah, you want to do that or you want me to?
Yeah, so basically it is this group of girls from Utah who are either still active in the Mormon church or were part of the Mormon church at some point. And they all came together to make a group influencer type situation.
Yeah, they refer to themselves or somebody in the first episode of it's almost like the house. What are those houses called?
That's what houses? I was thinking. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But they don't live together.
No. So yeah, a group of I would say 8 to 10 of these Mormon wives. Yeah. And they were, I think when TikTok first came out, just dancing videos are their big thing.
Yeah.
Well, one, if not more, of these Mormon wives somehow got involved in a soft swinging scandal.
Soft swinging.
However you want to take soft swinging. And so I think it just caused a lot of tension and commotion within the group. And that's essentially what the show is about, is just these girls and all their drama.
And you wouldn't think there's a lot of drama, but I was telling her, I first started watching this. I put it on as background noise while I was eating. And I couldn't stop watching it. It was so crazy. The first episode especially just really draws you in. So, I mean, are you ready to get into the first episode?
Yeah, let's just go into the first episode. We just wanted to debrief those who had no clue what we were talking about.
Yep. And if you haven't watched it and you're into that reality TV stuff, you definitely should go just check it out because it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, if you like trash TV, you will love this show. Eat it up.
So I'm gonna look at my little notes here. I kind of wrote for the episodes to kind of remind us. So episode 1, Whitney comes back. They introduced this swinger scandal. And Taylor, the end of episode 1, Taylor, who's the main one basically that started Mom Talk.
And a big thing within the show too is Whitney and Taylor are the main moms of Mom Talk. And I feel a big chunk of this season is them fighting over who's queen bee, head bitch in charge. And a lot of the girls in the beginning of the show, I think, are giving Taylor a lot of hate because she came out and made a video explaining to TikTok the swinging scandal. So that's kind of where we start the first episode off, is everyone's kind of pinned against her. And her and Whitney are just kind of going back and forth, I feel to be the head person.
We find out, like we said a while ago, a lot of stuff in this episode. And one of the things we find out about Whitney is that she and her husband moved to Hawaii.
Yes.
And so we're introduced to all these girls. She comes back from Hawaii. They're oh, she's coming back. And then they're oh, is she here for good? Or is she just coming to visit? Mm-hmm. And they say, no, she's back for good. And she tries to blame the reason for her going later on to Hawaii with her husband is that she wanted to get away from the swinger scandal.
Yes.
But then we find out a little later something else. And in this episode, they bring up that there was a rumor that Whitney's husband was on Tinder.
And so that rumor was brought up, and she basically told all the girls, no, that's not true, blah, blah, blah. Well, we start the season off with Whitney talking to her husband, and she's I'm tired of lying for you. I'm tired of living with this. You're just going to have to, own up to it because I can't do this anymore. Yeah. So she has to go to this like meeting with all the other girls and basically...
Which she called this meeting.
Yes, she absolutely called this meeting, and she basically just lets them all know, hey, I've been lying to you guys. He was on Tinder, but he said he didn't, right? He said he didn't sleep with any of them. Yeah, but it was just for, I don't remember his reasoning.
He had like a porn addiction was his reasoning.
Yeah.
And I think this is kind of getting into episode 2, to be honest, because I think this is when that happens. But yeah, he has a porn addiction apparently, and he's been doing this their whole marriage.
Yes.
I in no way could, I don't understand. Like, I'm baffled. How do you stay with somebody who's been on Tinder the whole time you've been together? That is crazy.
I did think it was interesting how the beginning of the season, it starts at one point and then it seems like they basically like have a break for a few months and then they come back to filming and it's like a whole nother set of issues are going on.
Well, I think that's because Taylor, like, okay, so I saw an interview, I believe it was an interview or somewhere they had like on a podcast. And one of them was saying that they didn't know if the show was going to happen because the first episode they shot, that's when Taylor got in that domestic violence thing.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently, like, she lost, like, or she, something about the custody with her kids, or I don't know. It was crazy. Like, so I think that's why.
Yeah. But I think that somewhat leads us into episode 2, if I'm remembering correctly. But whenever this was coming back, this was all coming out on TikTok a while back before the show even came out. I had heard on allegedly rumors that Taylor, when this domestic violence incident happened with her boyfriend, that her kids were in the house. And so I think there was probably muddy water around that. And that's probably why they kind of like shifted and like there was a little bit of a break. But the rest of the show is from that point on. But there is that little break in the beginning of the show, which I don't know.
Did that confuse you? Because it confused me. I was like, wait,
exactly.
what happened? But then I kind of put 2 and 2 together even before I saw like the interview. Mm-hmm. That's probably why that gap was there.
Yeah. And so they show up for the second half of the filming, basically. And it starts off with Taylor basically talking about how she is now expecting a baby with her new boyfriend and how she is currently on, what was it, probation?
Yeah.
For her charges.
8 months or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. When that got brought up, she's talking to her mom in that scene. Her mom is ruthless.
Jeez.
Like, you can just, like, I don't know, like, feel the, like, disappointment just, like, radiating from her mom. So I did kind of feel bad for her for that, because...
Yeah. But she did a really good job, because if my mom was to talk to me like that, or, like, especially if I had kids, I'd probably be like, nah, me and my grandkids we're out of here. But I think it's because... Or not my grandkids, my kids at that point. But I think it's because she really relies on her parents.
I was going to say that
watching
too.
The kids.
Yeah, you can definitely tell. And her mom even made a comment about that in the episode. She was like, yeah, they really miss you. Like, you should be around more. You should take care of them more. And I think at that point, Dakota moves into her parents' house without even asking her dad. Her dad shows up from work and is like, yeah, Dakota is moving in right now. Like, no heads up, no warning. You're 30 years old. You and your kids and your man.
Does she live with her parents?
Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
That's where in the first part, I don't know if it was the first episode or the second episode, she was living with her parents post-divorce. And I think that's why they were helping her out with the kids and stuff so much. Okay. And then I get confused where that little gap was that we were just talking about. I think maybe they moved out and got their own place because in one of the later episodes, like episode 7, 8, something like that, she goes over to her mom's house and her mom's like, why isn't Dakota here? I wanted to talk to both of you. So I think at some point they did move out and get their own place. But whenever he just was like, I'm moving in, crazy. I cannot imagine being a grown ass adult and being like, Mom, the man's is moving in.
Yeah.
That's just like insane to me.
And I think he even thought that the mom, or that she had told her parents already. Because he's like, you just told him now? Like, he literally was like shocked.
That's why sometimes I'm just like, I want to feel bad for her, but I feel like she gets herself into these situations. I'm like, this 100% could have been avoided, but I don't know. She's just a little chaotic, a little messy.
Yeah. And another thing that happens in episode 2 is Whitney, the saint of all saints.
This holiest of saints.
Isn't that what they call themselves? The saints and then the sinners?
The saints and the sinners. Yeah, that's a big divide in their group in the beginning.
But Whitney has this brand deal for two. That was a weird emotion. Forget that. She does that in the scene, and I try to do it. Okay, we're gonna forget that happened.
You had to be there.
But yeah, I watched the show. But yeah, so she gets this brand deal, which is like really, I guess, taboo. Is that
taboo within their culture? I'm assuming
for sex toys.
Yes.
So you have all of these Mormon women on the couch, which they're all kind of already like not
the holiest
traditional. I think, yeah. And then she's like, I don't know if I should do it. And then she like pulls out all these toys, and it's just a funny thing to see.
Yes.
And then when she goes to her mom
and her sister,
yeah.
And you could tell like her mom wants to be supportive of her, but is also like kind of just like weary of the whole thing.
The church is not gonna like this one.
No. I mean, obviously we don't think that's a big deal, but I could see why her uber religious family would kind of be like, might come back and look a little bad on us. But I just thought it was funny how she brought up, these have made my sex life better. I was like,
first of all, I do not talk to my parents about sex. Like, no. And she's just sitting there talking about stuff, and I'm like,
just like jaw.
Like, what is going on, lady? Like, I mean, good for you. I mean, I guess it's good that some people have that relationship with their parents and feel comfortable enough to do that. I'm just not that person.
I didn't get the vibe that they had that close of a relationship, though. I felt like she was like springing this on her mom, and you could tell her mom was just like kind of uncomfortable, kind of like,
yeah,
okay, but trying to be supportive. So like, love that she was trying to be supportive, but you could definitely tell she was a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like that was sprung on her.
Well, I think the reason, because I know she even talked about her sister dating a non-Mormon boy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so she didn't realize that like her mom would be like cool with stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And I do think there is a different dynamic with like the oldest child versus like the youngest. Like a lot of rules and things change, and they get soft like as more kids leave.
So before we get into episode 3, which is Blake's graduation at Jen and Blake's house.
Yes.
I did want to bring up that. So I saw online that Michaela and Jesse are like no longer like active members of the church.
Okay.
So this kind of makes more sense with this episode.
Yeah.
As to what happens with Jesse in the hot tub.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to take the lead, or do you want me to?
No, go ahead.
So yeah, I don't remember if anything else really prominent comes on in this episode, but at one point they all go to.
Keep in mind, this graduation party is at his parents' house, and I think his parents are pretty strict.
Religious.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, and his dad like even looks very like just his look.
And his dad, right, is a
mean
surgeon, like a heart surgeon, something crazy like that. So they're very by the book, straight, narrow
Mormons
type people. Yes,
and so they're having this party there, and I guess they're planning to go out after, which I found out watching an interview. Mm-hmm. And they're in this hot tub, and Jessie and her husband pull out a flask, and everybody's like, what the heck? Like, it truly is kind of disrespectful. It's not your house.
It's not even their house. It's his parents' house.
And they know that his parents are super religious and don't allow that stuff or like to do that stuff. And they do it there. So, I mean, I would be pissed off too.
Yeah, no, I thought that was fair. Especially like you're supposed to be like my best friend. So like if you care about me enough, then you can just like not drink for this evening. Yeah. Just to like you can go home and drink after. We could all go out after this, whatever. But I ask you one simple favor, like show up. So I thought that was pretty tacky, but not that there was anything wrong with them drinking, but I saw why she got mad about that. But later on in the season, gets a little crazier with their whole situation.
Well, Jesse seems like a fun person to be around.
She does.
Like, she likes to party.
She definitely seems like the good time of the group. Oh, like, Whitney seems obviously a little uptight. And so some of them seem a little more fun than others. But it was... Who all was drinking? It was Jessie and her husband, and...
I think that was it.
Was it them?
Yeah, just them.
I didn't know if Demi or... I could have sworn there was somebody else,
Not that I remember them drinking. I don't remember. But I think from what I recall, it was just Jessie and her husband.
Okay, maybe so. Mm-hmm. But that's pretty much, I think, all that was going down in episode 3. Nothing too crazy.
Yep.
Just that party really was the only big thing going up.
But the next episode...
Yeah, this is where the show, I feel like, really starts to pick up and the drama starts to get a little juicier. So we're getting into episode 4 here, and that is with the birthday celebration for Macy. So they show up. Whitney gets all the girls, like, their customized sweatsuits with their little names or whatever. And then who was it that brought out this box? Was it Demi?
Yeah, so... Oh, was it Jessie?
No, it was Demi.
No, it was Demi, because she was like, oh, because at the end of the episode, she's like, well, I really brought this upon myself or something like that.
No, you're right. So Demi brings out what she calls her truth box. And so all the girls go around and they anonymously write a question, and it's specific to another girl in the group. And they all put them in the box, and then they go around in this circle, and each girl draws out a card and then reads that question to the specific girl. And this is where things start to really get messy.
Yeah.
So, who is it that asked the first question that made everybody mad? It gets a little foggy here.
Yeah. So, I think it was, I don't remember if this one came first. I think it did. So, I think somebody pulled out a question for Whitney, and it was like, Whitney, why are you jealous of Taylor? Or like something along the lines of her being jealous of Taylor.
Yes.
And then she's like, I'm not just jealous of Taylor. And all this other stuff. It's like, girl, yes, you are.
Yes. Like we mentioned earlier, like these two are beefing to be like top of the food chain in this little group. So,
but I don't even think they're beefing. Whitney is beefing with herself, making up this imaginary beef with Taylor. Yeah. And that's why nobody likes Whitney.
No, it's absolutely one-sided beef. Like, yes. Whitney is so full of herself, like, has to be the center of attention at all times. Like, because when was it? It was either the second or third episode. They all get together and they're trying to hash things out, I think, where they first start filming again after their little break. Mm-hmm. And they're going around, and this is when Whitney is telling everybody, like, her husband did actually, like, have a porn addiction or whatever. Yeah. Well, Whitney got pissed off that Taylor was like, yeah, okay, actually, I'm backtracking a lot. Hold on. This
I
is
feel
actually...
like it's going to happen a lot, though, because you kind of have to reference some older stuff to make sense of the newer stuff.
Yeah, and that's how it felt watching the show. Is like they're just throwing in like new little snippets at all times, and you're like trying to catch up and see like just pieces of the puzzle keep getting added. So they're going around. Whitney shares that information with the whole group. Well, Taylor tells them that she just had a miscarriage at 4 weeks. So Whitney is mad at Taylor for basically taking the spotlight off of her. She's like, I'm talking about something really heavy, something really personal. And then she just doesn't even say anything about my, I don't know what to call it, drama. And she just starts talking about herself. So that made her mad because she wasn't being the center of attention. And Whitney, throughout this whole show, is notorious for causing a scene if she doesn't get her way or she's not the center of attention. She'll leave. She'll just cause like this giant scene for absolutely no reason.
Yep.
So that brings us back
to the present.
Yes.
Yeah. So she's like, I'm not jealous of Taylor. I just don't like the fact, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here because I don't remember exactly what she said, but basically something along the lines of, I don't like the fact that after swinger talk or the swinger scandal, everybody forgave her, but after my RSV video, nobody forgave me.
Yes, so now we have to bring up the RSV video story. So that one, not too much to tell. I guess basically one of her kids was in the hospital with RSV, and it was pretty serious, and she made like dancing
she
TikTok.
Was like dancing next to the baby in the hospital in his little like hospital bed thing. Yeah. And everybody, she got a lot of heat because it's like, girl, your kid is battling this sickness And you're over here trying to make money off of that. Like, what? And so it's a big thing.
Yeah. And which a lot of the girls say throughout the season that Whitney is like the face of Mom Talk, like she's head of Mom Talk, which I think that could arguably Taylor.
Yeah.
I think that's the one who I knew, like when the show came out, like that's how I knew who this show was going to be about. I didn't know really any of the other girls besides Taylor. But another, like one of the questions from the Truth Box that got brought up that's really stirred the pot was, who was it? Demi, that she basically said that Jen was too Mormon.
Yeah.
And this is the one whose husband had the graduation party, and she got mad that the other girls were drinking at her in-laws' house.
Yeah. And at this point, she's like, she knows Whitney was the one that put it in there.
Yeah. It was very obvious that Whitney was the one that put it in there.
And so at some point, like when they're having this conversation and Demi is trying to like explain to Jen what she meant, freaking Whitney and Macy are back there giggling, and she turns around, she's like, you guys are back here giggling at like the shit you just caused. Like literally Whitney just stirs the pot.
I feel like low-key Macy kind of does too, but then she tries to like back up and be like, nope, not me, like my hands are clean type of thing. But she's kind of like almost Whitney's little puppet.
Yeah.
In a way.
I totally agree with that. Whitney's little puppet for sure.
Yes.
So while Demi's over here trying to like explain herself to Jen, Whitney also brings up that this is not the first time that Demi has said something. And then she goes, you also called Taylor white trash. So Whitney's just throwing some lighter fluid on that flame and just keeping it going. And at this point, Demi is heated. She's just pissed.
Oh, she gets so pissed
and
off.
She's like explaining what she meant, but like, how can you really explain calling somebody white trash? Like,
yeah, there's no beating around the bush with that. Like, say it with your chest, you know what you said.
And she tries to make it seem like it's because of the whole like cops thing and like the scandal thing. But, like, it's just like, no, Demi's, all of those girls, really, besides, like, I don't really see Layla doing that much stuff.
No, I feel like Layla and Michaela kind of, like, fly below the radar. They're not very problematic. They're pretty, like, easy to get along with in the group. But for the most part, all the other girls, like, they are talking bad about each other. Like, it's very fake. Like, the whole group is so fake.
They're just not really friends. Like, it's just crazy.
And so after they are having their little beef sesh on the couch, who was it? Whitney and Taylor decide they're going to go upstairs and they're going to have like a private conversation. They're up there, not going well really, but it's not going absolutely terrible. Well, then Demi decides she's going to come upstairs, and I think she felt bad for Taylor.
I think that happened the next day.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Because they end the conversation and everything seems pretty okay after, despite like the little blow up they had. But I'm sure everybody's still like underneath feeling salty because Taylor and Demi were supposed to share a room, but Taylor's like, I'm not trying to be rude, but like I don't feel like sharing a room with you because of you calling me white trash.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. And Demi's like, I totally understand. I'll go sleep in the bunk bed. Yeah, girl, get your little ass up in the bunk bed and stay away from me. Literally. You ain't sleeping in my bed, bitch.
God, I can't imagine. So anyway, never mind. That conversation did happen the next day. But basically when Demi went up there, made the entire thing 8 million times worse.
Yeah.
So I think eventually they come to a stopping point where they're like, we can wrap. No, it was Michaela. She was like, we were supposed to go to dinner at 6 if you guys were ready.
But I feel like you kind of skipped over the whole fight, like, or the whole thing that happened between Taylor and Whitney.
No, you're right. No, you're right.
So they get
so much.
The next day, after this night, you know, all that blow up, the box, they get up, film a TikTok, like nothing happened, all wearing their matching sweaters. And Taylor's like, hey, Whitney, I'm going to go, or she's like, I'm going to go upstairs. Whitney, come with me. Like, and Taylor's really trying to resolve the issues and like figure this out. Like, she's like, hey, let's figure this out. And Whitney's not having it. Whitney is completely shut down. She's like, I don't think I need to, or like, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't owe you anything, which is true. But if you were friends with somebody and then you just go and do that, that seems kind of shitty. Like,
I feel like that's where her victim mentality kind of like comes into play.
Yes.
Kicks in. Like she just needs people to feel sorry for her at all times. And like that attention needs to be on her at all times.
oh, and a big part of that conversation too, which I think we forgot to touch on, was the baby shower for Taylor. When Whitney didn't show up and Taylor's mom calls Whitney and is like, why aren't you here?
Oh, was that before this trip?
I think so.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, we're segueing back real quick.
Yeah.
So
I think that was like episode 2, because that's when they like come back and we find out she's pregnant. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was.
That might be episode 3.
Okay.
Okay,
3.
yeah.
Yeah, one of the 2.
Yes. So did Taylor host this baby shower for herself or...
Yeah, I think she did.
Okay, so yeah. So all the girls are obviously invited, and Whitney decides she is not going to go, which, whatever. But I think everybody was so mad at Whitney because she didn't even text her to let her know that she wasn't going to come. I think Taylor was under the impression that she was going to be there. So she's like, everybody, can we take like a group photo, whatever? And she's like, where's Whitney? And that's when Layla decides to tell her Whitney is not coming. And I wasn't going to say anything because I was hoping she would show up and I wouldn't have to say anything, basically.
Yeah.
So I think people were a little bit annoyed with Layla in that episode because she should have said something, but I really don't feel like the blame should be on her.
No, it's
like,
not her place.
She just didn't want to get like thrown in the mix.
Yeah, she literally said, "No, I didn't want to be like the shoot position, like shoot the messenger type position." Which
exactly.
Which with this group of girls, I can totally see that happening.
Oh, 1,000%. Definitely. They're all out for blood, it feels like.
Yeah.
So she's upset that she didn't show up for said baby shower.
Yeah.
And so I think going into this girls trip, that was another like element of why everyone, or like why things were so like tense. Just a lot of like moving parts to that.
Yeah. And like, so they're up there, Taylor and Whitney, and the girls are listening because it's like this open like loft area.
Yeah.
And Demi's like, she's being too nice. And
Yeah.
they're getting nowhere. Demi goes up there and then she starts like honing in on Whitney, like saying like, you always play the victim, you leave, which she's reading her to
Red.
Like
Absolutely.
she's good. I mean, I'm like, dang, I was checking off boxes that I already thought in my head. I was like, girl, you got it.
No, 100%. She let her have it. Are we missing anything from that fight that was major?
I don't think so. That just they go from up top. Whitney does what she always does, walks away, and then goes and cries in the closet, and then.
Yeah, pretty much. The closet scene had me dead. Like, why are you going
dang.
to... Another thing
They're
that bugs...
ruthless, bro.
No, ruthless. Another thing that kind of bugs me, though, is every time Whitney, like, causes this whole fiasco and then she's like, I'm going to sit back and cry about it, no tears come out of her eyes. She's just, like, crying and it's just, like, dry.
Do you notice how she only cries in public, though? Like, she cried at the restaurant, that dinner, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But, like, it's just... Ugh. She just gets on my nerves, bro.
Yes.
So
So that's when I think we covered all the topics on like this big blow up essentially, but that's when Michaela chimes in and she's like, so I think we have dinner at 6.
Yeah.
And so all the girls basically like collect themselves enough to get ready and then they go out to dinner for Macy's birthday.
Yeah. Poor Macy. Like, let's talk about Macy for a second, because this is like a birthday trip, a girl's trip for her. And it's just all the shit. Like, it's just crazy.
Yes. Which I feel like is a common theme within this show is they love to ruin each other's birthdays.
Yes. It's like, it's a birthday. Let's hash out our shit right now. Perfect.
Like, this is just a perfect, like, filming opportunity, and we're just gonna, like, shit all over your day.
It's crazy.
The one day of the year, everyone's just supposed to be nice to you. Like, we're just gonna make you cry.
Happy birthday, ruined.
Happy birthday. I think things were going pretty good at the dinner, if I'm remembering correctly. Everything went fairly smoothly at the dinner. Besides Whitney sitting off to the side,
crying.
like fake crying, checking her phone. She like pulls out her napkin. She's just,
Can we talk about Whitney's outfits for a second?
no,
Oh my gosh.
It's giving milkmaid.
Dude. It's crazy, her outfits. Or, gosh dang, I can't wait. We'll get there in a second. I'm not going to say that yet. But her outfits, just wild.
No, what got me was when Whitney goes out and she gets the cake for Macy and she's lighting the candles and she's walking back from the back with the restaurant. Did you notice that she has toilet paper on her shoe?
She had toilet paper on her shoe.
And the producers just like
wild.
Zoom in.
There's some hoes for that, bro. Tell her. Step on it.
I think they're tired of her shit too. They're like, you want to act like you're so big and bad, like, here you go. Like, we're just gonna call you out real quick.
That was so funny. The toilet paper, I forgot about that, but that killed me, man.
I was crying. I was like, went to my notes section. I was like, toilet paper on shoe.
Paper on shoe.
that cracked me up.
Funny. I think that's pretty much it from the birthday episode or that episode.
Yeah.
And then I don't remember if this is in this episode or the next one, but they all get back and Whitney leaves the group chat.
Yes. So I think the whole deal with Whitney leaving the group chat was she was just so offended by, I don't know if she was actually offended or if this was just like the way she was trying to spin it to like justify her leaving, but she just seemed like she was upset about the comments that were made and she just feels like nobody's on her side, and if y'all hate me so much, like, why am I even
trying to be friends with y'all?
Yeah. So she starts to separate herself post-trip.
Which those are valid feelings, and I don't want to dismiss necessarily Whitney's feelings, but she is just so much playing the victim, and she's the type of person who dishes it out but does not want to take it.
No.
She's like, why are you hurting me, blah, blah, blah. It's like, girl, you're the one doing it and started it. Like,
no, that's what I was saying. Like, she loves to start it and then just back up and be like, who did that? Like, I have no clue what happened. And her leaving the group chat, I think, also goes to my point of she just wants everyone to feel so, like, just like the attention has to be on her. I don't know how else to say it other than that.
And that's why she does not like Taylor. Like, that's the biggest reason. She can say all day she's not jealous, but that is the exact reason she does not like Taylor.
Yeah.
But when did I think maybe we skipped over the...
Are you going to talk about the
Galentine's?
Blessing? Oh my God.
Oh,
both
the blessing
too.
We missed some things. So this full disclosure, we watched everything, but I wrote like the titles of the episodes and kind of what was in them. And I somehow skipped putting in the Galentine's Day. And I know this happened before the divorce party.
Yeah. So next time we recap a show, we'll be more
detailed. So, but this is what we do. We pull it together in the end.
We're winging it. Okay.
Winging it.
So Blessing, I want to say, was after the graduation party.
Yes, because that's why she didn't
So, okay. Graduation party, the whole drinking scandal happens. So, since that was, what's his name? Zach. So, also another thing we did not bring up.
Why am I thinking Blake? Is there a Blake? Is his name Zach or Blake? It's Zach, right? Now I'm confused. No, his name is Zach. Let me look this up.
No, I'm pretty sure it's Zach.
Where did I get Blake from? Oh, I wrote Blake graduation.
That's why.
Who's Blake?
Blake?
But yeah, okay, it was after.
Okay, so Zach and Jen are obviously upset about the alcohol at the party.
Yeah.
So right after that is their youngest child. They're doing like a blessing type party. So I guess the whole
like a baptism, I guess, in their religion, something like
it's
that. It's
basically the equivalent of that, in my opinion. Just like close friends and family members all come over and they all just basically go around and say different prayers and bless the baby is essentially what's going on here. So at this point, she had already invited all the girls to this blessing party. And after the drinking incident happened, she and her husband were upset that they would be so disrespectful. And they felt like they were kind of making a mockery of the church in a way, is how I took that.
Yeah.
So the girls are at the hair salon, Jesse and Demi, and they're like, I don't think we're invited because I didn't get a formal invitation to said party. So the girls decide they're going to call her, FaceTime her, and ask her straight up if they are invited. So they put her on the spot, and she's like, yeah, so me and Zach just want, people who are really close to us to come. She wouldn't just come out straight and say, you know what, you pissed me off with that. So they're just like beating around the bush. What I thought was absolutely insane, one, that they FaceTimed her and put her on the spot. Like, nobody do that to me. Like, please, I'm begging you. But I thought it was crazy that she's like, Zach, can you go in here and like clear this up for them? Like, can you let them know why you don't want them coming?
Because I truly believe it was not her and it was just him.
Which we found out later in the season, like how freaking crazy he is. So I definitely could believe that. But when you're first watching this, I'm like, why are you bringing the husband into this?
Yeah.
Like, this is girl drama.
And this is where, like, the whole saints and sinners starts to come into play. Like, really, you can see the distinction between the girls who kind of click up as being more, I guess, devout.
Yeah.
Compared to the other girls. Mm-hmm. And this is where that divide really comes in. And it's just, you can really see it. Because the first episode, you couldn't really tell. Because everybody seemed like they were all, like, lax.
Yeah.
Until now I'm, like, thinking, okay, that's why Whitney dresses like this.
Which I think got brought up at the birthday party was Jen makes the comment. And she's like, I forgot my garments.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that also gave Demi another leg to stand on to be like you're this like holier than thou Mormon, like you're a better Mormon than everybody else.
That was perfectly placed there too, because it's like I forgot my garments, and then
I was like, did you really?
She's too Mormon, according to Demi.
Literally, it's fucking crazy. So yeah, that was that whole situation. What else? Valentine's Day. We completely forgot. Skipped Valentine's Day.
And I don't remember when that happens, but I think this is after the baby thingy, the blessing.
Yes, it was after the blessing because that's when they all started getting really pissed off with each other.
And clicky and dividey.
Yes.
And this is where like you can really see like how much of a mean girl like Whitney is and like her little group that like follows her, which eventually
they all dissipate.
Yeah, they all dissipate, but they're all getting ready for Galentine's, and Demi's like, oh, I want this to really be like special and like just a nicer evening. No, not gaggy or is that the right word? Like a gag gift. Not
she
like,
just wanted it to be cute and for the girls. Like it's not about like typical Valentine's Day stuff. Like it was just about the friends getting together and like trying to make peace after the whole sinner versus saint situation. And I genuinely think was trying to
do something nice
and like help the group basically. Yeah. But didn't go that way. So to start this off, I think this is going to come back later on in the season. But Demi is upstairs getting ready and she's like almost completely ready, but she's in a bra. She has like her skirt and like her hair done, all the things, but she's in a bra. Not like that's a big deal at all, but it is going to come up later. So I just wanted to preface with that.
Is that the one when that happens? Because none of the boyfriends were there. It was just her husband, Demi's husband. I think it was a different time when they were what you're talking about.
No, I think it was that, but I think Dakota dropped Taylor off. And he saw that because she like came off the landing of the stairs like that. Okay. Because remember what is it? Episode 7 or 8 that gets brought up that he was uncomfortable. No, it was at the birthday party. It's brought up. Yeah, I think. Like I said, guys, this is so hard.
It's hard because the show goes back and forth so much. So like everything's gonna kind of be like meshed together. But, like, it all kind of correlates. So, yeah, we're going to go back and forth a bunch of times. It's just going to happen.
You're just really going to have to follow the bouncing ball here. We're trying our absolute hardest right now.
But, yeah, so she's like, oh, my God. Like, I thought I started this at 7:30, but I started at 7. So people start showing up. And it's, like, flashing back to Whitney, Layla. Is it Layla? No. Whitney, Jen, and Michaela. No. Whitney, Jen... Is it Michaela?
I can't remember who all was there, but basically you need to know Demi and Whitney were a part of this. I can't remember who also was there when this took place. I want to say Michaela.
I'm talking about in the room. So, like, they're in the room.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I was thinking...
Getting ready, Whitney. Okay, I know it's for sure Jen, Whitney, and then...
I want to say Michaela because I think Michaela made a comment that she... knew that Demi was going to be upset. Yeah. That Whitney was doing this.
Yes, I think so. And so they're all there getting... Well, who's her best friend? At that point, what's her name?
Who's best friend?
Whitney's?
I think Whitney's best friend throughout the whole thing is pretty much Macy.
Macy. Okay. So,
but I think that started out like Whitney, Macy, and Michaela were all pretty close.
Okay, so that's the three that was good. I don't think Jen was there.
Okay.
Sorry, I really wanted to get that right because I was like trying to remember and it was bothering me.
We don't want to like throw anybody under the bus that doesn't need to be.
But so yeah, they're getting dressed and Whitney's like, oh, she brings up the Fruity Pebbles story.
So as we get into the Fruity Pebbles story, we don't know exactly what went down because it wasn't filmed. This is all hearsay basically, but I think a different party, what were they, joking around, and Demi called her husband and he was on speaker and he tells the Fruity Pebbles story. It was all like blurbed out or whatever, so we don't know exactly what that story entails, but it kind of lets your imagination go wild.
Yeah, and they like reenact this supposed thing, but the way they reenact it doesn't look like anything crazy. But I did see a comment from Demi on a TikTok that she basically said it was not vanilla, like it was not as vanilla as people are thinking, like it was something crazy. So, but we don't know what it is.
So basically what we can assume from what we know though is that I think she called her husband and asked him to explain what happened on one of their little sexcapades or something like that. I don't know what you could even call it. But the other girls were listening. So that's how the other girls know about this story. Well, Whitney thinks when she comes to Valentine's Day, it will be a cute little funny moment to bring Demi a box of Fruity Pebbles. And it just snowballs from there, basically.
Oh my God. And Demi's husband did not know that he was on speakerphone in front of all these girls.
Yes. And another thing was they had discussed between the two of them that like nobody was going to know about that. Like that was very private, intimate part of their relationship, and nobody was supposed to know about that.
Yeah. And then here comes Whitney to just put it out for everybody to see, basically.
Literally.
Just basically fucking her over. And so she gets pissed. Like,
and she makes like a whole scene out of it. She's like, guys, like watch Demi open her present or whatever. And so everyone's sitting around and they watch her open this box and it's the Fruity Pebbles. And you can immediately tell that Demi is pissed off. Like she's like, oh, closes the box, goes upstairs. Like she needed a whole minute to like collect herself after this.
But the kicker is after Whitney just caused this like unnecessary drama and put Demi's business out there, she tries to turn it around on Demi and basically blames her for
what, making her feel bad?
Yeah, making her feel bad.
She's like, I feel like you're mad at me. Like, no shit, I'm mad at you. Like, what do you mean?
She just, once again, is playing the victim.
Always.
Trying to play the victim. She can never be what is, I don't even want to say abuser. She can never be the person that puts it out there. Mm-hmm. It's just crazy. And that's when you really start to see, like, that was one of the big points for me. I was like, holy moly, like, this girl is off her rocker.
But that's when really, I feel like people started to, like, jump off this Whitney bandwagon. They're like, she's a little shady. Yeah. So we just had to go back, talk about the whole Valentine's Day situation because that was a big thing and we missed it. Yeah. So that brings us back to Layla's divorce party.
Yeah. And I don't think much really happens at the actual divorce party that I can remember.
I don't think
other than Whitney being there with her husband. Mm-hmm. And I remember him trying to open the bottle of, I think it was sparkling cider.
Was it that or champagne? No, it probably was because they don't drink.
Yeah, they don't drink. And
yeah.
He was like hitting it on the table. And I think he makes some comment about like, oh man, I wish I wrote this down. But he makes some comment about a butt or something like. Or,
I missed that.
Dang it. I'm going to have to figure out what it was. But it was this funny comment because it played into like the gay thing. Yeah, and all I could think about. And it wasn't a joke or anything. He just said something and I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, so they're there, and I think, who was it? Was it Jessie that talks to her? So Whitney is having this chat with Jessie that I just talked about, and so she's realizing, like, everybody does not like her at this point, and, like, everybody has said something about her never mind the fact that Whitney was talking shit about everybody else first.
Yeah.
And she literally tells her, like, everybody's saying that you always put everybody else's business out there, like nobody can trust you and blah blah blah, basically telling her the truth. And Whitney gets like sad and starts crying again, and that's when her and her husband leave the divorce party.
Shocker. She's always leaving. Like, she's just gotta go run away, throw her little tantrum, and she leaves.
Yep.
And that's pretty much all that goes down at the divorce party. That pretty much ended the whole thing at that point.
Yeah. And then we get into the juicy parts next.
Yes, this is the crazy part. So I don't remember why exactly. Oh, that was it. So Layla, she just had her little divorce party. It's her birthday. So Jesse thinks it'll be a good idea to take all the girls on a little trip to Vegas. So Jesse plans this whole thing. Oh, hold up. We forgot something.
Oh my gosh,
we didn't talk about the coochie surgery.
Oh my god.
And that was pre-Vegas. So I think
crazy.
that's
right before Vegas.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Because she's like, oh, I'll be better by the weekend. It's, blah, blah, blah. I'll be able to go to Vegas or whatever.
Because she says she goes, gets this coochie surgery, gets some new titties. And she's like, yeah, I'm on painkillers for the next, 2-3 days. But then I should be fine by this weekend, which, okay, you're brave.
Yeah.
Not me, but she still plans this entire girls' trip to go to Vegas for them. So there starts to be a little bit of drama before they leave because obviously she just wants this to be a girls' trip. She wants everyone to try and like get their shit together, start getting along, and the husbands aren't having it, or pretty much two.
Yeah, all of the husbands are fine, except of course Zach, who is Jen's husband,
and
Dakota, who is Taylor's boyfriend.
So the guys try to make up their own little plan, and they say, oh, we're going to go with y'all, but like we'll hang back, we'll stay at a hotel, whatever, just us, because Dakota allegedly doesn't want to be away from Taylor when she's already this pregnant, and they're already fighting a lot, which we haven't even touched on. That is how much Dakota and Taylor fight about literally everything throughout the entire show.
Like, I don't understand how they were still in that relationship. Like, the first episode they're fighting, literally cops called, they continue to fight, and then right before Vegas, they're supposed to ride up there because Taylor can't fly because she's so pregnant. Mm-hmm. So they were going to drive with Jen and Zach. Right before when they get to Jen's house, Taylor knocks, and she's like, yeah, we just got into a big fight. And so then Dakota, Jen come in, and Zach and Dakota and Taylor come in, and Jen and Zach are there too. And they're like kind of talking about their fights and everything. And it's just like they cannot not fight. Yeah, just get their shit together. It's just crazy. Can you imagine how uncomfortable it is to ride in a car with some couple that's fighting like that? Like,
no, I was going to bring that up. I feel like most of their like conversations they have should be conversations they could just have like between the two of them as a couple, like at home. Like, it doesn't need to be in front of like this entire audience, and it always is.
Yeah.
Like, even earlier in the show, Dakota and Macy like don't like each other, and so they invite Macy over and they're having this conversation, and they were airing out their dirty laundry in front of Macy, and it had nothing to do with Macy. You could tell she was sitting there like, like, why am I here? Like, y'all need couples counseling. Like, this has nothing to do with me.
Yeah. And they're just extremely like not good for each other. And you can tell like Dakota has some, if not control issues, some like anxiety issues, to where like he is just so afraid of like, I don't know, just like what she could be doing and stuff like that. And Zach's the same way, I think, for sure.
Yeah. I think I will go out on a limb and say Zach's control issues seem a million times worse than Dakota's.
For sure.
That's just my opinion. So, yeah, we're at Zach and Jen's house, and Taylor and Dakota squash their issues enough to where they can get on the road and they go to Vegas. So all the other girls are already in Vegas. They've picked out their rooms at this point, and then the four of them show up. Well, Jesse, before they show up, decides to make a sign and put it out there and be like, girls only. She had a really big problem with the guys like coming to Vegas at all. So she was like, in this house, it's girls only. Like the guys have got to go. So they show up and both of the guys walk in the house, and she kind of just like goes back on what she was saying, like making a big deal of before they walked in. And I just thought that was really funny. I was like, you're talking this big game, like they are not allowed in here. And then it's just like, hey guys,
and they're all there eating sandwiches and stuff.
So I was like, okay.
But like, it's true though. Like, and this is where we really start to see Zach's issues that he has. And that's, I guess, you want to kind of go in, because I don't think there's really anything else that happens until we get to the Chippendales.
Yeah. So one thing I did want to like mention before they got to Vegas was, I can't remember why he was upset, but Zach, I don't think wanted Jen going on the trip at all. I just think he loves to like have his little thumb and just like make her feel small and just like dictate every single thing she does, even though, keep in mind, Jen is the breadwinner of their household. She takes care of the kids. She does all the wifely things. She brings in all the money, but he gets to dictate how they spend it and everything she does, and just the controlling aspect like starts coming out more and more and more. Yeah. Well, like I said, she's bringing in all the money, doing all the work, and he asks her for $2,500 to go gamble while they're doing whatever they're doing, so he can have like his own time while they're in Vegas. And they kind of allude to the fact that we think Zach has a pretty big gambling issue.
Yeah. Because he's like, yeah, I haven't gambled in a while. It's been like 5 months. Like,
yeah. And you saw something online, right?
I thought, I don't know if this is true or not, but like I think I saw something about like how his family gave him money to kind of to help them through his medical school and stuff. Mm-hmm. And living expenses and stuff. And I would use a lot of it to gamble. I don't know how true that is, but I think I saw something like that. So I don't want to say it's true when I really don't know, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw something like that, which is crazy. So alleged, but I just thought
that was interesting that he was asking her for so much money to go gamble.
That is crazy.
And you can tell she's like pissed off by that. And like she's made little comments up until this point about like he needs to step up, he needs to do better and help her more. And she's just kind of like doing everything on her own. So I did feel pretty bad for her.
Yeah.
So anyway, at the house in Vegas, when the guys come into the house, they're setting some ground rules. And Jesse basically says like everything's gonna be fine, we're gonna be respectful, like we're gonna be on our P's and Q's, like we're just gonna have a good time. I'm taking the girls somewhere tonight. It's a surprise. Nobody knows where we're going. And then segue, they're all on a party bus and they show up at Chippendales.
And they're not just seeing the Chippendales. They have gotten backstage passes to rub oil on the Chippendales.
On the Chippendales.
On the Chippendales. So we flash to this, like, them, like, rubbing oil all over the body. And as soon as Jen and sees it, she's like, oh, Zach's not gonna like this.
No, they didn't even get backstage, and Jen is losing her fucking mind. She is texting Zach like, we're at Chippendales, so he's already pissed off. They're already texting.
Well, no, she didn't text him yet, I don't think, because Taylor was gonna text Dakota, and Jen was like, don't text yet because I don't want Zach to know yet.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. So she is backstage. They're oiling up the Chippendales, and she is just like looking down at the floor, like, you know, like very uncomfortable, like she knows he's going to be mad at her or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess Dakota went ahead and let Zach know at this point what was going on. So then Zach calls Jen and he is pissed off.
Yeah.
Irate.
Oh my God. He starts talking like, I've seen screenshots like where people would pause at the right time to read the message that he sent. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I can't be married to you anymore. I can't do this anymore. And talking about like questioning her integrity. And we're talking about the girl who somebody called too Mormon. Okay. Like, yes. Come on now. It's just crazy. He's like saying all like the meanest shit you could say to somebody. And that's such a like narcissistic thing to do. Like,
Yeah.
you can tell he's just doing that for control, and that's just the way he is.
No, it's super abusive. Like, she was so distraught, and it was really hard to watch. Like, genuinely felt so bad for her.
And it's not like she didn't even want to get near them. She didn't plan it.
Yeah.
And like, that's just, I hate when like that, those situations are so tough and just stupid when people.
And I just felt bad for the girls in that situation too, because they didn't plan it, and she sprung it on them like last minute, and she's like, yeah, the husbands might be mad at me. Like, you caused all of them to like be in this giant fight with their mans, and you're like, well, my husband's fine with it. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great.
Well, I think the only husbands who were mad were Zach and Dakota.
See, I thought there was that one scene where Michaela said Jesse called her, and he was kind of mad. I don't think it was near as big of an issue as Zach and Dakota, but I don't think he was like super excited about the fact either.
Because I know somebody, who was it? We see like them in their room, and she's packing, and she's like, oh, what if we go to see strippers? And they're like,
oh, that was Macy, and he's like, okay. I don't care.
Yeah,
like
he's like,
chill
no,
about it.
Yeah, and that's like how they should be. Okay, it's just, I hate when people in relationships are like that.
Especially like it's a giant group of like well-behaved women for the most part. You know what I mean?
And
like,
I did see some comments from Zach's family after the show.
Who?
Yeah. So like the brother and the mom were commenting on stuff and saying like Hulu's portraying them so badly, and that basically defending her son. And she even calls out she says like his wife too. Like, I'm like, could you imagine your mother-in-law just being like doing that shit to you?
No.
Oh my gosh.
And I bet they were like actually pissed off about all that stuff. And now that like they're in the public eye and it's all coming out, they're trying to backtrack and be like, oh, we are just the sweetest people. We would have never have done any of that. Like, you're like damage control essentially.
Yeah.
Like,
well, if the son acts like that, he probably got it from the dad. You know,
yeah.
So I'm sure the whole family just looks really, and it's kind of hard to say because it's a different religion. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just how some people are. But from like an outside perspective, it's just crazy how that whole family is. Like, they're so.
And like, I'm sure they do have like an extra level of like reputation to uphold with him being like a surgeon. So I'm not dogging them completely, but I do think it's probably, I don't know, like it's probably like their dynamic, and they're probably trying to do like a little bit of damage control is like the vibe I was getting.
Yeah. And there's a certain group. So I found this out too when it comes to like the religion. I don't remember what it's called, but like you can be like higher up, like go to like just higher up if you donate, I think, a certain amount of your tithes. So I'm thinking maybe that they donate a lot of money and they're that higher up, and so they're trying to really like uphold that.
Which I feel like I get in a sense though.
Yeah,
I'm like,
and it's hard to judge because it's somebody's religion.
Yeah,
and we don't want to do that, and that's not what we're trying to do. But it's just from an outside perspective, it does look kind of like wild to us because it's new, like it's
very foreign to our regular lives.
Very crazy.
So he's basically just obviously, like we said, like super mad about the Chippendale situation. So Taylor and Jen end up leaving. After the Chippendale show, the girls who stayed for the rest of the show finally show up, and Taylor and Jen are just sitting there crying, and they're so sad. And the other girls come in and they're like, whoa, like this is the best thing ever. And so that basically sums up Vegas, like the ending. Oh no, wait, Jen goes...
Yeah, missing.
MIA. I think essentially Zach she had to go meet up with him, and they had to have like this long discussion.
Oof. But get this. She had to wait for him to stop gambling so that way they could meet up.
Yeah, so he's out here burning her hard-earned money with his, I'm going to call it a gambling addiction. I think she tiptoes around saying that on the show, but I'm just going to call it. how I see it. So he finishes his little gambling session. They meet up, they have a conversation, and she's missing, quote unquote, for hours. And the other girls are starting to get really worried about it, super nervous. And then she shows up back at the house after God knows how long.
Yeah. And then basically, I don't think they really touch. Well, actually, they do. So they're all out at dinner when Jen comes back the next day. And Jen ends up showing up, and like a couple of the girls are going to a bar, but some of the other ones aren't. And it's Taylor, and I forget who else was with her. It may have been Michaela, Taylor and Michaela. And then Jen shows up, and then we see the other girls show up. And they all kind of like speak their mind about Zach, which is good, but at the same time, I feel like she was very overwhelmed, and like she was already in such a position where she was like had such a emotional night on her end that I'm like, why would they bombard her with this stuff right now? Like in the middle of a bar.
That, and I felt like they were trying to like make her feel bad for like allowing him to treat her that way, and I was just kind of like, I get it, but also like, don't keep beating this girl while she's down. Like, she's having a hard time. Obviously, this is a lot. Obviously, she's not okay with it, but it's kind of the situation she's in. And I think that you can't just tell somebody to leave someone because you think they're not good for them. Like, that's a realization they have to come up with on their own.
Yeah.
And I just felt kind of bad for her. Just all the way around, Jen just in a really fucked up situation, in my opinion.
Yeah. So after that night, the next day is when Dakota comes and then talks to Taylor. And freaking Macy had set an alarm on her phone to tell Taylor about the Jenna girl who supposedly she does this like anonymous confession thing or some Sunday confession.
On her like Insta, I think.
And this girl said, I only met Taylor once, but I don't know if I should tell her basically that I slept with Dakota, like
before I knew that they were
together. Yeah.
And that's another one of Taylor and Dakota's fights that keeps getting brought up throughout the entire season is right before they got together, he slept with this Jenna girl and she doesn't know how to get over it. She's really upset about it. And so Macy decides she's going to bring up this confession. And like you said, she had that little timer on her phone for it. But Dakota's there, and they're already fighting about the Chippendale situation. So I think she just decides she's going to hold off on that.
Yeah.
So that gets brought up once they're all back from the Vegas trip. Her and Taylor have a moment to themselves. And she tells her about this confession. And she basically tells Macy, if that is true, like, I'm 100% done with him. Like, I'm not going to keep doing that. Like over and over again.
And she also says that when they're doing like the truth thing, because that gets brought up too, the whole Jenna situation.
Yeah.
And so like you said, they meet up. It's almost like they're on a date in the car. Freaking Dakota and Macy
had this little meetup by themselves, and he pulls up and she's already sitting in her car, and he gets in her car. And
let me preface too, because I forgot to add this part, but this is after Taylor and Macy had met. Macy tells Taylor. Taylor tells Dakota. And then Dakota meets up with Macy and is like, what the hell?
Like, and he basically tells her, like, I feel like you wrote in the submission. Like, I feel like you were trying to stir the pot.
Like sabotage them or something.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much where that, ends off. Like,
well, I think that happens, and then right after that is like the very last scene of the show for this season, and Macy takes it upon herself to call Jenna, and she decides, I'm going to just basically try and like get everything out in the open so everybody can make their own decisions after all this information is out.
Yeah.
And she decides to do this after Taylor has given birth to their baby. And I really think Macy doing this, she was just securing a second season for everybody.
Yeah. But we also kind of glazed over how Macy has her sugar mama launch party.
Yes.
Whitney does not show up.
I think it's baby mama.
Oh, baby mama. I say sugar mama?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Tomato.
Yeah, same thing. But yeah, she has this lunch party. And Whitney does not show up. So all the girls are like, oh, we're going to unfollow her right as soon as the website launches. You literally see
Everyone
them on camera.
Unfollow.
It's like, oh my gosh.
Michaela included, which we'll go into the next part.
Yeah. So after that, Macy's obviously rightfully hurt because Macy was the one defending her the whole time and there for her. And she's like, what the hell? They go to Michaela's birthday party. It's at this like skating rink. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, Whitney shows up when Michaela doesn't even like Whitney.
And Whitney's been unfollowed by everyone at this point, and she
Yes.
takes it upon herself to show up like she does, to stir the pot, to put the attention on her.
And I think she mainly did it because she wasn't getting enough airtime and she just felt like she needed to go.
See, I had a different take on that because before this happened, Whitney got her own little scene. One scene that she got by herself, her and her family decide they're going to be homesteaders. Okay, so get that over with. And then the next little clip that she gets that's just by herself is her announcing her third pregnancy to her family. And do you want to go ahead and tell everybody how she decides to announce her pregnancy to her family in a restaurant?
This tripped me out. Like I had to pause the thing because my mouth is dropped.
Baffled.
We see this cake being brought out from the restaurant. And I knew something was in the cake I already had the feeling that she was announcing a pregnancy.
Yeah.
So the mom's cutting into the cake. She pulls out the pea stick. Not a fake pea stick. The actual pea stick that she peed on. She put inside this cake. Like, what the fuck? That is crazy. Could you imagine? Nobody can eat that cake now. There's piss all over it.
Can you imagine going and spending $60, $80 on this fucking cake? And then there's a piece. I'd be pissed if someone, I truly have no words. I'm so
it's just so gross. And she kind of comes back and she's like, oh yeah, well maybe that wasn't the best way to do it. And her little sister's even like, we can't even eat the cake now because there's piss all over it. And she's like, I covered the pee part. And it's like, no. Her little sister's like, no, it splatters, girl. It's all over it. What are you doing? It's so sick. That thing's been in the restroom, probably laying on a restroom counter. I can't even.
You could even tell in this scene that I think her family just gets annoyed and fed up with her shit sometimes.
Yeah.
They were just so fed up, really over it.
She was making this comment while they were cutting the cake, and her husband was even like, okay, stop, just stop. I don't remember. It was something about what is it, or ew, or something's in the cake, or something like that. And
he was like, quit saying ew.
Yeah.
Something like
Jesus Christ.
So my whole point to that was I think she comes back from Michaela's party because now that she has announced her pregnancy, taken the picture, posted it, I'm assuming, she has her storyline secured for the next season, and she wants everyone to give her all the attention and be like, oh my God, it's all about Whitney. She eats it up, So that's
to
what I
announce
took.
her pregnancy to them? Or?
I think so. And then when she gets there, and it's very apparent that she's very unwanted there, and I don't know if she was invited previously, or I don't know how she showed up, but she could tell nobody wanted her there.
Yeah.
And then her and Macy are on the side having their little conversation, and you can tell she's just looking over to the group, wanting everyone to stare at her because she's making a whole scene as she normally does.
And Jessie says nobody even wants you here, and I don't know if she actually said it to her face or they just cut it
to make it look like
she said it to her face, but to me it looked like she was like, why are you here? Nobody wants you here.
Yeah. And then she goes and says hi to Michaela, and Michaela's obviously what are you doing here? And she's like, okay, well, I'm gonna leave because I feel awkward. Love you, bye. And she's like, bye. No, love you.
Michaela's like, no.
Obviously you're gonna feel awkward because you weren't wanted, and you knew that. 1000% you knew that.
She was like, do you want to open your present? And she's like, not right now.
And then when Michaela's like, I think I stepped on her present when I left, I was like, oh, she's gonna be pissed.
That is fucking crazy. This show overall was just a wild ride.
Yeah, it definitely is worth your time to go watch it.
If you haven't
very
already.
Entertaining. If you like, trashy reality TV, this is right up your alley. There's a lot going on in every single episode.
And it's almost like refreshing because it's a new type of, it's not a new type of show, but like it's just so different. And like we're used to seeing like shows like Leaving Amish, you know what I mean? And I'm not comparing the two shows, but like that's kind of what I thought it was going to be like, because I really didn't pay attention to this show at all when it was being promoted.
Yeah.
And then I watched it and I was like, oh, okay, this is like way different.
Yeah. Like another aspect I thought was different about the show is I feel like a lot of the reality shows, like they're always drinking. So some of their fights are like drunk and like don't necessarily make sense. But with this one, they're all pretty much sober. So I feel like that adds like a different dynamic to their fights, which I thought was kind of interesting.
They're hopped up on caffeine.
Yeah, that just their, what's the name of their
Swig.
They got their swig drinks.
Swig is, did they have a swig here?
No.
Swig's good. It's expensive though.
I believe it.
It's kind of pricey. It's pricey. I'll just stop there.
But yeah, like I said, we left off with Macy making that phone call to Jenna. So I definitely think there will be a second season. They really set it up to where it would be perfect for another season. So
I would love another season, like tomorrow. So I can start watching it right now. Can we just have like a live feed?
Y'all can drop it like every week, but just like we need one.
Yeah, like they used to do, where shows had like 20 or 30 episodes a season.
Yeah.
That would be
now
nice.
We have 8.
Yeah, we have 8. That's not enough. I need more tea. More Mormon tea, please.
Absolutely. But that pretty much sums up the show. We just thought we needed to recap this because it's truly going around like everywhere, and it was super interesting, and
we just had a lot to talk about with it. And like we had to stop each other from telling each other stuff before we recorded this, so that way we'd have stuff for this, because all I wanted to do was watching it was like text her and be like, oh my gosh, did you see this? Oh my gosh, did you see that? And it was just so hard. And
there's a lot of things I feel like we still didn't even touch on, but that's all we're gonna go into because that was a lot, truly. I feel like you get the point of the show and you should go give it a watch. Let us know your thoughts.
Yep. And leave a comment if you see anything that we didn't mention here that was like really drastic that maybe we forgot.
Yeah.
Because that'd be cool to see other people's perspectives and things that they saw that we didn't think about. So that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. We look forward to hearing y'all's thoughts, and tune in next week for another new episode of Who Even Asked.
And I do want to say this real quick. Sorry. We're recording these episodes the same day, so you're probably going to see us wearing the same thing. I just want to put that in there.
Yeah.
We're not repeaters. Well, anyways, okay, we'll wrap it up like you said. I'm Jazz.
I'm Tay.
Thanks for watching.
Catch y'all next week.
Bye.